Shalom, shalom, guys. It has been a little while, a lot of things going on here. Life is fantastic, but I'm telling you, we've had a lot going on. So I have not had a chance to make some videos. I do think in the next probably 30 days or so, I'll be able to put a few extra things together and get some stuff out here into YouTube land. And I'm looking forward to being able to do a little bit of conversing and all that kind of good stuff. But what I want to do is kick something out here real quick, as well as give you kind of an update on where we are. So got a short video clip here from Rich Cooper, the Unplugged Alpha, and we will take a look at it. He's got some comments, and I want to make some comments on his comments. So this should be interesting here, just a real quick video kind of thing, and then some updates on what's going on in our lives here at PeterGRambo, or the House of Rambo. All right, buckle up. Here we go. Okay, guys, so we have had a lot going on here. I think some of you know that we had had some damage from a house fire in middle January, and have spent a whole lot of time really just working on getting some things back in order. I would call it an inconvenient blessing. At the end of the day, really, we did not lose anything of major import, and in fact, the process of getting things straightened out, smoke damage, fire damage, all that kind of stuff, we are able to improve some things as we're going, because we're doing the work ourselves, doing almost everything here in-house. And so it's been good, but it's a lot of full days as we work toward this. And I feel a little bit like I'm playing the parking lot game, if you've ever seen one of those, where you've got the car and you got to figure out how to move all the buses, or you got the bus and you have to figure out how to move all the cars in order to get the car out of the parking lot. It's sort of like that, because it's like, got to move everything out of this room, and we do these things, then got to move everything back into this room, and move stuff from that room over into this room, and etc. We did put a shipping container outside where we could put a lot of things, but all of that. Also, as most of you know, I think we did a live stream. Lily is here and is now permanent party instead of visiting occasionally, as she had to do while she was still working in Europe. So glad to have her here as permanent part of the family, and getting everything woven together, and us enjoying each other's company. Kelly likewise, and having a great time. Life is good, no question. The Patreon, where the majority of our activity is continuing to be quite active, and a lot of people there, a lot of discussion. I would tell you, if you're looking for a place where you can find out more, learn more, spend time around people who are polygynous and or are learning and growing in that area as far as what Scripture has to say, come on, we'd love to have you. So should be a link for Patreon down below. We've always got some kind of a little clip in here for you to give you some information on Patreon. But without further ado, what I would like to do is to head into this clip, and I had forgotten that this was in my saved file. I don't even know how old this clip is. Let's see, when was this originally published? Let me switch over here. You'll see what I'm seeing. Right now I'm seeing it's, is it possible to manage multiple wives? And this is a short clip that he has from a much larger podcast that he had. And I guess this has 3,800 views, and it was put up about 10 months ago. So let's jump into this and catch some pieces and talk about them.
I mentioned Casey Jones earlier because I had him on my podcast, and I put that interview on my email list. And if you're on my email list, then you'll get it over there. It's like the 12th or 15th email that gets out on the list. But here's what I found interesting. He was super active, posting multiple times a day up until April 17th. I talked to him like about a month or two before that, and spoke for like 90 minutes. He got into like depth. Here, I'm going to put it up on the screen so you know who I'm talking about. he got into depth on his story. So up here you can see his 6 wives. I thought he had 7. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, his bio says lessons from my life as a polygynist, veteran, ex-adult performer, conservative writer, farmer, libertarian, homeschooler, and Australian. Anyway, so he hasn't posted.
He's going to ask, and not sure because Casey had not posted anything in recent days at that point, and I don't know. I didn't go look to update on Casey Jones. I don't know Casey myself. Have heard a little bit about him and some of his story, but apparently the Unplugged Alpha, Mr. Rich Cooper, was having a larger discussion about handling multiple ladies in a household and so on and so forth. And we're going to find out what his perspective is in just a minute. But as part of maybe his research and in talking to others and trying to understand a little bit about alpha men and how things go with that, he had interviewed Casey Jones. So Casey is well known in circles, in some circles among those who have more than one woman. He's got 5 or 6, and so had a picture there
on his account since the 17th, and I know he had some issues with law enforcement in that country in the past because technically it's not legal to be married to multiple women. So it doesn't make sense that he's disappeared. I asked on Twitter.
In a lot of different places, the question isn't whether or not it's legal to be married to multiple women. Certainly in the United States, as we've talked about before, generally the problem is it's illegal to have more than one marriage license. In fact, the law doesn't care if you have 14 girlfriends and you're spending a different night at a different place everywhere you go. The law has problems if you try to marry them legally and have a marriage certificate or that sort of thing. Most of the laws are written that way, although in some states, even for example Utah, it has removed or it's been reduced from a felony to a simple misdemeanor. The bottom line, though, I think in most places or most cases is if you don't just refer to them as my wives, but instead refer to them as my ladies or my ishas or some other term. Part of the baggage that comes with the word wife is legal baggage. At the end of the day, the truth is, if they're your women, they're your women. Doesn't matter, really, as far as I'm concerned. And scripturally, if you take responsibility for a woman, take responsibility for the woman. And there's nothing wrong biblically. You can go through our channel. We have lots and lots and lots of videos, lots of different things, some with both of my ladies on there. A lot of different things where I'm just discussing what Scripture says, looking at different cases in Scripture, doing response videos to others. But there's not a big deal here as far as I'm concerned. In fact, we look at a culture that is completely adrift, and the only thing that people really get irate about is polygyny. They don't care about polyamory. They don't care about polyandry. They don't care about any kind of male or female relationship that's male or female. They don't care. They don't care about any of those things that Scripture would roundly speak against. Every one of those cases. Scripture says exactly nothing about a man having more than one wife apart from giving some guidelines and saying, if you're going to do it, this is how you do it righteously. But the culture hates this. They don't hate any of that other stuff. I do think that we are living in a time where we've gotten to a place in this country that if somebody were to try to prosecute a person for having or claiming to have more than one woman as a permanent, regular, committed, covenanted relationship, they'd be in real trouble. It would be very hard at this point to prosecute. I think literally the law takes a blind eye or turns a blind eye towards it because they know they'd lose the case based on everything else that has already happened legally in this nation with regards to relationships. We see that with the Oberfeld decision. We see that with a lot of other things that have happened recently within the LGBTQ stuff, where they've created such a circumstance, or the legal code has allowed so much in that situation that now they cannot justifiably discriminate against those who want to be in some other form of relationship, leaving the door wide open for those who practice polygyny righteously.
The other day, has anybody seen him? And people were commenting that he was under investigation or had some issues with the authorities. I don't know whether that's true or not. I wish he was around to hop on and have a...
And again, that's in Australia. That's not necessarily in the United States. But again, I don't see how the liberal governments of the world at this point can persecute one without going after every other form, or going after every political figure that happens to have a mistress on the side.
Conversation about it. But there's just another example of one that isn't working out. I think the only time that you will see these work out when structured properly is under the rule of Islam, under the rule of some kind of religion that sets a standard. I know that you've got some of these...
The comment that he makes here is an interesting one, and I think a valid comment that he's making, that the only way that you can have a polygynous relationship really work out, because he's assuming at this point that the Casey Jones situation has come apart, and I don't know that to be the case at all, but he's making that assumption right here. But he states that the only way that these work out is if you've got a religious organization, or some sort of a religious underpinning. And I would agree to a point. What you ultimately have to have, now, my perspective is that the human nature is a nature that's a sin nature, and so as a result, we need rules and we need guidelines and that sort of thing. It's the way the Most High designed it when He gave Israel a code and said, "This is how you are to live if you want to please Me. This is what righteousness looks like," because we know that the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked, and who can know it? All these kind of things. So along those lines, what do you have? Islam is a patriarchal, generally speaking, a patriarchal religion that has strong structure and very strong guidelines. Scripture is also this way when read rightly and employed properly. It's a patriarchal, as I've taught over and over and over through all of my stuff, that it is a patriarchal. Scripture is patriarchal in nature, everything from beginning to end. It's got a very heavy authority structure that is set there for our good, right? In fact, just a quick plug here. I've got my T-shirt. Let's see. I'll flip the camera here for just a second so you can see this. But I've got the test T-shirt with the design a little bit larger than what it's going to be. But the Kingdom Restoration Conference that is coming up in June, and if you're interested in that, contact me. My Telegram information is down below. Would love to have you. We're going to be talking primarily authority, headship, family structure, patriarchy, polygyny's on the table. We will be talking a bit about Scripture and the restoration of the kingdom and what the Word says about the restoration of the kingdom. But what we understand is those who understand Scripture and those who walk it out according to the way the Father originally designed it, and that is His Torah and following the Messiah, walking in His ways, in His paths according to what Scripture says. The structure's already there. It's God, Messiah, man, woman. There's a structure that's in place, and that structure provides the framework within which a polygynous family or polygynous situation works well. Okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second.
Is it the Mormons in Utah? I can't remember. Remind me in the comments. But there's a chapter of the Jesus Christ Church that
the FLDS
allows men to take on multiple wives, and they do. And there's TV shows about these things, sort of stuff. And they have a schedule, and it seems like the scheduling with the multiple women seems to solve most of the problems. It's like Casey said, the reason why he's got 6 wives and no more is because there's 7 days in a week, and Saturday is for the boys, and every day of the week he's got one night with one of the wives, and they all have their own bedrooms in the house, and they spend one night with him in his room, sort of thing. So he has an entire system down, but they never.
So scheduling is one way to manage or to set a framework within which everybody has expectations that can be managed, right? I know men who operate on a very tight schedule, and I know men who do not operate on a schedule, but they actually have a framework of understanding that the man is in charge, and the man gets to choose and do according to how the Father's leading him or the Spirit's leading him, to do according to how he sees fit to manage his family. He's the head of the house. It's his family. It's his, quote, kingdom, right? He's the king. He's the head. He's the one, and he can make those decisions, and everybody in the house operates according to those rules. So, when we're talking alpha, that's exactly what's got to happen, is you have to have a man that can be a leader or be in charge. Too often there are those who aren't truly alphas. What they are is they want to be an alpha, they play alpha, and then they have two women, but it's not the man that's calling the shots. It winds up actually being the women in the background calling the shots, and that's when things start coming unglued, because he's not really the head of his house. And we see this both in monogamous marriages as well as in polygynous marriages, where the woman is the one that's calling the shots, or the women are calling the shots. But if the man's truly the alpha, if he's the leader, a schedule may be one way to work with it that allows literally to unload some of the responsibility onto the schedule, or strong communication and strong decision making, and saying, this is where I'm going to be here, and this is where I'm going to be, that night or whatever, and this is the way I choose to operate the house.
Never seem to last unless it's under the rule of Islam, because they structure it under the notion of sister wives, where it's like, you have your first wife, you have your kids with her, you have your next wife, you have your kids with her, and they generally treat them all the same. I think.
Okay, so he says he only sees it last a long time under Islam. Actually, I know multiple polygynous men who have 2, 3, or more wives who have more than 30 years of polygyny under their belt. I know multiples of these. I've had conversations face to face and over the web with polygynists that have, and I never did flip my camera back, did I? That have multiple wives for 30 years or more. So it's not something that only happens or only makes it or only survives in Islam. We can look in Scripture, and it happened for many patriarchs for long periods of time, sometimes 50 or more years, long periods of time where they would have polygynous families. Okay, so structure and an alpha man makes a really big difference. In terms of having everybody having their own little space or whatever else, and everybody getting treated exactly equally, I think there's wisdom in trying to maintain a degree of equality, but the man also has to have the freedom that if a woman is not operating according to his system or according to his leadership, he has to have the ability to withdraw himself a little bit, or to be able to bring correction, whatever that looks like. And sometimes that may be a little bit of distance, or it may be some level or some degree of inequality. Equity is probably a better word, because different women have different needs, and so that they can be met in different ways, and everybody be in a very happy place. So we'll continue here.
I think you have to treat them the same. I might be stepping out here, but my understanding is
have to treat them the same.
They usually have like a fourplex or something like that if they have 3 or 4 wives, and then they manage that.
So, like I said, I think there's wisdom in treating them the same, but you don't have to treat them the same. Okay, at the end of the day, it comes down to the man leading, and the man setting the rules, and the man establishing the boundaries, and the man establishing what is acceptable and not acceptable, and how it's going to operate in his house.
Lifestyle in a very orderly way under the rule of religion. But what do I keep telling you about dudes and what we love doing? We love complicating our lives and justifying why we do it unnecessarily. And then we end up in scenarios like this, where you're trying to start a business and you're distracted by two women. You're not sure which one's the right one to choose. You've fallen for the one that's obviously blowing your hair back in the bedroom, but the one that's financially filling in the holes and the long-termer, and that you love her and you love her family and the life you've built and all that sort of stuff. What do I do? It's not an easy situation to sort out.
All right, so he's I think being overly simplistic, or maybe it's very much the way somebody who is simply into the hedonistic side of relationship to say, it's just one's blowing his hair back in the bedroom and the other one, well, she's a good solid, whatever. I think a man who adds women to his life should do it for a good reason, and it's more than the bedroom. The bedroom it probably should be one of the latter reasons, or one of the latter things, unless it's a situation where the first woman is barren and the man desires children but doesn't want to just turn the first wife out. In that circumstance, we look at Sarah, we look at Hannah and Peninnah. We can look at, I'm trying to think if there's some others that we have in Scripture in terms of barrenness, where having an additional woman for the sake of bearing offspring is a good thing, right? And so that might be part of the issue. But the solid part of all of this is that the man should bring women into his life that are going to be net positives or net gains to whatever it is that he's doing, and not a distraction, as Rich is talking about here.
My advice is to focus on the business and forget about the women. And at the end of the day, I think it's time, effort, and resources best spent if you only choose women that choose you. Clearly, the wife no longer chooses him.
There's some truth
because if she chose him the way that she authentically and enthusiastically did at the beginning, that would continue into perpetuity. Instead, she's doing transactional intimacy, which only happens when she feels like giving it to him a couple times a month just to placate him and shut him up. But she looks the other way, or had looked the other way, when he was having fun with the other girl.
So he must be talking from the podcast. I have not heard the larger podcast, but he must be talking about a situation or a conversation that was going on before he got to the Casey Jones in the beginning of this clip, and how the dynamic was being played between a man and apparently a longstanding wife and maybe another lady that had come along in the middle of this, and then. His advice to the man is focus on the business. Don't focus on the women. I would say you need to always be focused on your house, and your house is going to include your women and your business and your everything else, because that's what you establish for the long term. We go back and look in Scripture, and we see the house of Jacob. We see the house of David, the house of Joseph, the house of Judah, the house of Israel. We see all of these as houses that the patriarch established something that had long-term trajectory, and it involved more than just women. It involved everything else, his assets, everything else that he was doing, in order to focus in a direction and to move the family in a particular direction and establish his progeny for a long period of time, generationally.
So you figured out what's the answer to this? I don't have a straightforward answer, man, but this guy has some idea as far as what might look or work better. They don't seem to last over the long run. Anything that I've seen never seems to last in the long run. There's always extra drama because you don't do something to meet some requirement that they have along the way, and then it blows up.
So in terms of lasting the long run, I think it's important to understand that we must be focused on building the house, building family, not allowing drama and these sorts of things to come in and stir things up. Instead, being the rock, being the cool head, being the one who puts the fire out and brings order to and does not allow drama to grow or fester or anything else. That is very important for a man to be able to manage a house going forward long term. Because the truth, a man with one wife can have all kinds of drama in his house if he allows it to go on, and if he allows it to fester, and if he allows her to be all about her feels all the time, anytime that she wants to, or pitching tantrums or trying to get her way. The man must take charge and be the leader.
Implodes, or the authorities are involved, or you've broken the law somewhere, or. If you want, honestly, guys, if you want variety and you want to focus on your purpose and your grind, don't get married. Don't commit. Focus on your purpose and your grind. Spin plates non-monogamously. It's much easier.
Spin plates non-monogamously. What he's saying is fornicate. Screw around. Just, play with them, use them, throw them away, whatever, unless he says the cream rises at the top and you find one that wants to be with you. But this is exactly what Scripture says not to do. This is exactly how a society is debauched. It's debauched when men are not responsible. They don't take responsibility for their actions. They don't take responsibility for their women. And it's debauched when fathers don't take responsibility for their daughters, and instead women go off to college and get used to screwing around, and then they screw right on into their 20s and 30s and maybe 40s before they start thinking about settling down. And that's just a no-go. So, for him, this is all about whatever makes me feel good, as long as I'm happy and I'm getting my needs met. Who gives a rip about anybody else out there? And that is the absolute wrong medicine for culture and for the society that we live in. That absolutely will do major damage to the society that we live in.
To do then, because you're in the dating phase. Only choose women that choose you. Let the cream rise to the top. Wait till she goes, where do we stand? Where is this going?
So the dating phase is essentially, let's just screw around. It's okay. No big deal, right? No, that is a big deal, because all you're doing is you're wasting your time and your energy, and you're using somebody else. Using them, right? And Scripture would call that fornication. Would call that a gross sin against the culture, against Elohim, the Most High, a gross sin against your brother, whoever it is, the father of that daughter, so on and so forth. Have you been searching for deeper understanding of biblical family structure? We were once where you are, full of questions, seeking answers in Scripture. That's why we created this special community, a place where seekers become family, where questions meet experience, and where biblical teachings come alive. Join us on Patreon and discover private discussions in our Telegram groups, real conversations about family and headship, a supportive community that grows together, and direct access to experienced mentors. Whether you're just starting your journey or deepening your understanding, we're here to walk alongside you. Take the first step. Join our family today, and let's grow together in understanding and fellowship. Shalom and welcome home.
And then make a decision from there on how you want to run it. You want to run it as a long-term relationship? You want to run it monogamously, non-monogamously, closed on her end, open on your end, whatever it is you want to do. Decide then, but I wouldn't spend a lot of time or any more time thinking about this other than, why am I not cash flow positive in this business, making way more money, so I don't need to stay in a marriage that doesn't serve me?
Stay in a marriage that doesn't serve me. Sometimes, I will be honest. Marriage is good. I've been married for 34 years now. I have to remember, 1992, 33 years, right? One marriage, 33 years, and another marriage coming up on 2. So, or we could call it a marriage. It's a relationship. It's a covenant commitment, okay? There's no paper involved. So, 35 years of marriage experience. And it's an investment, but it's a responsibility, and sometimes it's something that requires sacrifice, right? It's not just about, as long as it serves me, and if it doesn't serve me, well, you're out of here, whatever. So one of these things one things that I would say here is that I'm terribly, or this is a really good peek into just the culture, the hedonistic culture that we have, and probably a very alpha male, or I don't know how he would describe himself in terms of red pill or MGTOW or some of these things, where just use women, throw them away, doesn't matter. And that's not the way Scripture is written. In fact, polygyny, by definition, according to the rules of the Most High, is designed to protect and take care of women. It's designed to be the social safety net for women, opposed to just using them and then tossing them out and letting them fend for themselves. To me, that is just anathema.
Deal with a woman. I mean, the ideal situation would be the wife would just say, "Go have fun. I don't care," and be totally normal, level-headed, cool in a relationship, whatever. But there's emotional attachment, and then there's hissy fits being thrown on both ends by both parties.
Yeah,
one of them
terrible
says,
advice.
Your wife, look me up, come and find me. The other one's obviously having issues with the whole thing, even though they pretend it's okay. It's a freaking nightmare. The whole thing is a total cluster block of a nightmare. I really hope you get.
So, there you go. One of the things that we get a little bit of a look into, is what is going on in culture and what the cultural expectation is. And that's just, screw around, have what you want. Don't make any commitments. Or if you do, make sure that it's open-ended so that, she's committed to you, but you can go do whatever you want or whatever. And that just makes me ill. It really does. Not even close to what the Most High has, or the sanctity that comes with a union between a man and a woman, and the ability for that to represent the relationship between the Most High, or between the Messiah and the Ecclesia, right? So I would absolutely agree with Rich from the perspective that you do have to have some sort of a framework. I don't know that it has to be religious, but there has to be a framework in place that's an agreed upon framework. Certainly for most everybody that would be a viewer of mine, you would understand that that is a Torah, or at the very least a scriptural basis, scriptural framework, understanding that patriarchy and headship, the role of the man, the role of the woman, the responsibilities of each, how they function together, how they should function in a larger family unit, what it means to be part of a clan, what it means to be part of a family, what it means to be part of a tribe, all of these sorts of things. And, for that, one of the things we're going to be covering a lot of that at the upcoming Kingdom Restoration Conference. I would invite you to find out, learn more about that. Contact us. There is some information on my Patreon. There are links to the Patreon just below. Come check it out. We would love to have you join us for the conference, and we're going to be discussing a lot of things from Scripture that deal with headship, that deal with patriarchy, that deal with masculinity, that deal with polygyny, that deal with the restoration of the kingdom. So, for King of Kingdom, I bid you shalom.